Brandon Schaefer. I'm with the Morton County SCD. I'd like to recognize the 4 partners, the Morton and Burleigh County SCDs, along with the North Dakota Grazing Lands Coalition, as well as Dakota Prairies RC&D. We formed a nice little group here to get this off the ground and running, and it's been real fun. A few housekeeping items. The first is, we didn't really have a problem with it yesterday, but please no smoking out in the pasture. If you do, just do it in your vehicle, please. The second, Kenny does have some pets slithering around out here, and so there is a chance we run into a rattlesnake, but hopefully not. Third, the bathrooms are right behind the grain bin here, if you didn't know. We won't be taking those with us on the tour, so use them before we leave. And, you know, if we're out there, just find a bush, and if you find a bush, watch out for a rattlesnake. So, but I guess now with that, I'd like to welcome... Oh, also, if you haven't registered, please at some point in time just walk back and let the girls in the back know. That'd be great. But I guess now that I'm done with that, I would like to welcome up Mr. Ken Miller. I've had the pleasure of working with Ken here the last few years. I wish I could work with him more, but you know, the time I've spent with him, I really have learned a lot. So if Ken would come up here and he'll give you a brief overview of the ranch.
Good morning. I want to welcome you all to our ranch. Like I say, it's quite an honor to have Allan Savory. Excuse me. I guess it's been, I went to that school in the mid-'80s, and that really changed the way we think and the way we operated our ranch. And so it's been quite a journey, and again, I'd like to thank all the sponsors again for putting on this event. And first, I'd like to introduce my wife, Bonnie. She's back there, and 3 of our 5 children are here today. Like Jerry Doan said yesterday, his wife is the glue. I guess Bonnie would be the gorilla glue. She keeps me in line. So, and again, my children, we raised 5 children, and we got 10 grandchildren. So, and they all live right here in Mandan. So they're a lot of help. And I guess a little history. This here was my dad's farm, and my grandfather's farm was right next. 2 small farms that were put together. So we run about 2,000 acres. We own 1,700, and we lease some river bottom lands from the Corps. We've got a grazing plan down there also. We manage that. It's a little bit bigger paddocks, but we will. It's amazing how that changed the river bottoms also. We went through that flood of 2 or 3 years ago. It took all the fences and everything out, but we just went and rebuilt it. But it was amazing how fast that stuff recovered. In the past, that would, again, Lake Oahe fluctuates very much. So on a wet year, it's flooded for about 3 months, and then it goes down. And then on dry years, when you need it the most, it's usually pretty good. But it's amazing how fast it recovered after that flood. It was underwater for 4 months, I believe. And so it does show what you do to manage grazing, how it does change the plant community and how it recovers. And then on our other pastures, we've got... we broke that up into small paddocks to get high stock density. We're running roughly 60 paddocks, and we'll also use hot tape to split those again when I get time. Again, when I was working full-time for the soil district, I didn't have much time for the ranch. It pretty much ran on its own. So we made quite a bit changes. We started calving in June, late May and June, and that was probably the best decision we made. You don't even have to look at the cattle, and they do just fine. We actually move them down the river bottoms, the main herd, and I would look at them about every 3rd day. Sometimes it was a week, and they actually did better without me. So that you can make ranching very simple and very, very profitable. And then we also do a custom graze for the neighbor. We've been doing that since 2006. So that's been, they run more on the native paddocks. I think you've got handouts there. And then we also run irrigation. We've got a grazing. We manage that with, we've got, I think there's 18 paddocks, 7 acres each, and we run about 85 head on there. Our yearlings, fat cattle, we finish some on grass, and then some older cows and pairs. And there we'll split those paddocks into, with a hot tape into thirds, so you get, again, very high stock density. And we're getting anywhere from 100 to 110 grazing days per acre on our irrigated land. So that's kind of a quick overview. I guess we're kind of short for time. It's going to be quite a logistics to get out in the field, but we're going to go out and I'm going to go through a bale grazing site, and then we're going to go to a riparian area, a native site. So I guess so when I get out there, I can show you the exact where we're located as far as on this map. So everybody got a handout, I assume. So with that, I guess I'll turn it over. I guess people came to listen to Allan Savory and not me.
We have Miss Jill Howard. She is the acting state conservationist for the North Dakota NRCS, and she would like to say a few words about the Millers.
All right, as was mentioned, my name is Jill Howard. I'm the acting state conservationist while Mary Podol's on detail to national headquarters. So I just wanted to take a moment to thank Ken and Bonnie Miller and recognize their deep commitment to conservation and natural resource education. Ken will talk later about how he's implemented the soil health principles, and he takes sharing that knowledge with others very seriously. He's not only hosted groups from all around the world, but he's also asked over and over again to share his expertise on various panels, boards, workshops, and he does so graciously. Ken recently retired as an employee with the Burleigh County Soil Conservation District, and I think many would agree that he's been instrumental in making the Minokan Farm what it is today. Speaking for NRCS, the Millers epitomize what it is to be a true partner, taking their time to share their experiences, expertise, so others can learn. I'd also be remiss if I didn't note that the Miller Ranch was one of the 3 finalists in the Aldo Leopold Award in 2016, which is a huge honor. With that, I'd like to present Ken and Bonnie Miller with this token of our appreciation on behalf of the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and we thank you for your commitment to education and the resource. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jill. Now we have kind of the moment you've all been waiting for. I have a few special guests here to introduce, Mr. Allan Savory and Mr. Byron Shelton. As you know, probably, I assume you all were there at the talk last night, that Allan was born in Zimbabwe. He graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Zoology and Botany. He is the founder and president of the Savory Institute, which is based in Boulder, Colorado, which serves the world through an international network of entrepreneurial innovators who offer holistic management training and implementation support. Savory's book, which after the talk last night, I'm sure we all went home and burned so we could buy the new one. It's Holistic Management, a new framework for decision making, describes his effort to find workable solutions that ordinary people can find to solve their own problems. In 2003, Savory received Australia's International Banksia Award for the person or organization doing the most for the environment on a global scale. And in 2010, Savory and the Africa Center received the Buckminster Fuller Institute's Challenge Award for work that has significant potential to solve humanity's most pressing problems. If we could give a round of applause for Mr. Savory, that would be fantastic. Thank you. And now we have our presenter today. I believe him and Mr. Savory will kind of pass off the mic, but this Mr. Shelton is the Senior Program Director for the Savory Institute, and he provides training in holistic management as well as for the network of the worldwide hubs that they have. And he is the founder and managing member of a private consulting firm providing facilitation training and whole farm planning using holistic management. He's worked with both large and small ag operations across North America, Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. He is also the founder and managing member of a private land management company producing and marketing 100% grass-fed Beyond Organic beef. So please help me welcome Mr. Byron Shelton.
Good morning. What a nice day. It's this type of day every morning, I think, at the Miller place. Is that right?
Yes. Usually better.
We're going to be out going here by about 10 o'clock. And what I wanted to do was yesterday morning, I hit you pretty hard since there's quite a few people that were here from yesterday morning or afternoon, then quite a few of you from last night. So this morning, even though we know there are some new folks here, just wanted to make sure we had a quick overview and help you realize, help drive home the point again that holistic management is not just about grazing, it truly is management. And Allan talked a lot about how we typically make decisions on land management is reductionist management. We take one piece at a time and we make choices and we move from there. And hopefully it all works, but it may not because we're not looking at the whole picture. Holistic management is truly trying to make management look at the whole picture, just like we need research sometimes to not be reductionist, but look at the whole picture. So in holistic management, we really work to make sure we're clear on who are the decision makers, what are they managing, and how do they make choices. The thing that caught me with holistic management when I found it was it gave answers to how to figure out how the ecosystem works and how to make choices about it. But that's neither here nor there unless it also helped keep people on the land and communities viable so that you could really see that connection between the purpose of having healthy perennial rangelands is it creates healthy perennial communities of people on them. To do that in holistic management, we have some definite planning procedures. We draw on a lot of outside information that people know and do and use, but there's some few key things that we bring to the table that we think strengthen. We have financial planning, which really strengthens the forward planning of an income and expense statement, a balance sheet, cash flow. Really helps us decide what enterprises we do. Is it crops? Is it livestock? Is it a mix? Is it tourism? Why and what are we doing and where are we putting our resources? We have a land planning procedure. But when we do start managing livestock, it helps really say, well, where do we put infrastructure? Why do we put it in? How do we pay for it? What order do we put it in? So that we don't just get carried off on some really unsustainable path. And then if we are managing livestock, there's so many missing keys there to the environment and how important livestock are to make land function so that then it can be at its best. And then we can tear some of it up periodically to become cropland. But we forget the fact. We tend to think about grasslands as being, well, the back 40 that's not plowable. Grasslands are what created the best soils of the world. Perennial grasslands hold the most water and carbon. Perennial grasslands create the organic matter to be able to actually farm those lands. So how do we take those and keep them as permanent pasture? Or how do we take those and put them into cropland and bring them back periodically through cover crops, livestock, or permanent pasture at times to continue to build that underground biological capital that really then lets us farm it in the other ways we want to. So holistic management walks us through that with those planning procedures. Also, we have a good process to check the ecosystem to really say, are we regenerating? Is this land improving so that we're really building that biological capital and living off the interest versus stealing into the savings continually? It's okay to steal into it at times in the soil bank, but you can't do it continually without ending up purchasing outside inputs. And then we have a process where we really look at, in that environmental monitoring, we learn to read the land through the ecosystem processes. How do we take and look at the simple, earliest leading indicators on the soil surface of the land that tell us if we're moving in the right direction, whether it's pasture land or cropland. So we look at the water cycle, mineral cycle, energy flow, the plant and animal communities, and we see, are we creating what we want or not? Then we've got these tools we use on the land. We've got fire, rest, technology, which includes all the cropping, and living organisms of animals. And how do we manage those? How do they react with the land? How do they create or not create better regenerative land so we can keep going here? And that's where the tool of grazing is. And when you put an animal on the land, you're bringing in two tools, grazing or animal impact. How do we manage those to make the land improve? How do we truly know what's going on with the land? And then a couple of the environmental principles that Allan's put together that make this so powerful. Are we in that brittle or non-brittle leaning area? For those of you somewhat familiar, are we in that seasonal humidity or regular humidity area? So that we know whatever tool we use on the land, what the probable results will be. So we plan as good as we can, and then we monitor, control, and replan if we need to, the use of those animals. There are other key principles there, this whole recovery piece, that you've got to allow plants to recover between grazings to then create that soil. And how do we do that? How do we reduce that partial rest? Yesterday on the field trip, one of the key points Allan was pointing out, for all the good effort there of working to time, there's so much potential left with being able to still reduce some of the partial rest that was still occurring there. If you have all the resource of forage you need, you're fine, and you're not losing a whole lot of soil to erosion, you may be okay. But if you truly want some more production, there's potential there that he was saying that's not being used. So being able to see those things, use those missing environmental principles to manage the tools right, to get the ecosystem processes functioning so that we can then have a healthy living from it, plan profit, healthy communities, and as a result of that, being able to have perennial grasslands supporting both people and wildlife, crops. That's really what it's all about. So it's trying to move to a management system that's whole, that's considering everything, not a reductionist one that continually makes us not look at the whole picture. And we probably, they say the average inherited farm in the U.S. Lasts how many years before it's gone broke or sold? One generation. So those of you that have done better, we commend you, and we want more people to be able to continue to farm if they want, and we want more people to be able to get into agriculture if they can and not accept the fact you have to get bigger or better to get out. What does that do when you get bigger and better? Nothing wrong with getting better, but just bigger by itself, well, that means the community size is getting smaller. And we ought to be able to overall maybe agree on some things. We'd like to see more healthy rural communities making more income off the land, along with that connection to the consumer. Anyway, I'm going to turn it to Allan, and he's going to make a few comments to you, and then we're going to head to the field. There'll be 2 stops out there we know of, and at those points we're just open to questions and answers. We're not expecting to cover everything or answer everything, but get you thinking. That's the most important piece. Allan.
I need that.
Yeah.
Well, good morning, all. Again, in line with what I said yesterday, I just did this last-minute preparation, talking to people this morning, listening to thinking, what did I learn last night? Where are you folks? How can it be most helpful? And so I scribbled a couple of points. The message we're trying to give you. The message we're trying to give you is very simple, but it's not as simple as the basic one that you all know, that if you want to live longer lives, more healthy lives, you've only got to do 2 things. Do you know what they are? And that's solid science. All you've got to do is eat less and exercise more. Now, we've known that for a long time. I believe, I'm told, over 300,000 people kill themselves in this country every year through not doing that. That's more than our war deaths in 2 world wars. Now that's a pathetically simple message. We can't get that over to the population. We can't get that over to agricultural policy, etc. when I gave my first talk yesterday on policy, it was our Achilles heel. And I wish we'd had everybody there, but we didn't. All right, and I pointed out how when I first came to America, I made the statement that I could not understand Americans fearing the USSR as they did, because the USDA is a greater danger to America than any foreign enemy has ever been, because of the policies. And then I explained why somebody like me would make such a stupid statement, and explained why, and it's not stupid. The greatest danger to the United States is the land degradation, the agricultural degradation, degradation of the health in our families, etc. 100% due to agricultural policy and management. All right, and so the message, when we try to get it over, of just eat less and exercise more, is very difficult. Now, the message we're trying to get over of our problems are not because we're stupid. Our problems are not because we're ignorant. Our problems are not because we're bad people. We just didn't know that for centuries, all management has always been reductionist. We just didn't know that. We discovered that in about 84, and we discovered how to correct it. So all we've got to do now is to begin to manage holistically, and we will begin to put all that right, because we're not stupid, and most people are good, most people are doing their best, etc. So now that message that we're trying to... I saw you looking anxiously when this dropped. Okay, that message that we're trying to get over is profoundly simple. Illiterate people just say, this makes common sense. They learn it in a matter of days. Illiterate people do, because ignorance never blocks learning. The only thing that ever blocks learning is our egos or what we already know. Ignorance doesn't block learning. All right, so the message is profoundly simple, but it's not easy, because it involves change. And change for us humans is difficult. So let me back off from that for a moment and just look at one of the reasons we've had agricultural problems for so long. It's not new. More than 20 civilizations have failed already. Farmers have destroyed more civilizations than armies have done. Armies have never yet destroyed a civilization, as far as I know. Farmers do a permanent job. Armies change civilizations, but they continue, like Lower Egypt for 10,000 years, because of the destruction of Ethiopia, bringing the silt down the river every year. Other than that, we've only maintained civilizations on major rivers or seashores, because of the vast distance and area we had to bring food to maintain our cities and so on. All right, so one of the reasons we've been in trouble for so long is a very simple one, and that is that land is not manageable. You cannot manage land. We've been trying to manage land for 10,000 years, and we haven't yet succeeded. Now, why can't we manage land? Aren't we all trying to manage land? Why can't you manage land? Because we live in a holistic world where everything is interrelated, twined together, nothing is indivisible, etc. We're understanding that more and more, and your land is so tied to your culture. The culture of the people living on the land and the land are so tied to each other that they have to be managed together. Now, what about the economy? The only economy that can ever sustain any nation or community, and this is one point no scientists are disagreed on, the only economy that can sustain a nation or a community is from the photosynthetic process. Green plants growing on regenerating soil. All right, so how do you manage land independent of economy and culture? We've been trying and trying for centuries, and it hasn't been working. The granary of the Roman Empire was the North African coast, all deserts today, etc. Okay? The greatest export from the United States every year now is eroding soil, outweighing all beef, all timber, all grain, all military products, etc. So we've got to change. And that way to change is to address the cause and to start managing our families, our culture, our farms, our economies as one. And that's what we do with holistic management. All right, so having said that, now what we're anxious to do, both Byron and I, and everybody at Savory Institute, is to make you more successful. I sometimes think of that ad that one chemical company had, and I periodically see it, where they say, we do not make the tennis balls you use, we make them bounce higher. We do not make the carpets you use, we make them last longer. We do not make the dress you're wearing, we make it brighter, etc. We can't do anything except help you be more successful. Okay, that's what we want to try and do, etc. Now, how are we going to do that? If we look at two football teams, if we had two football teams, and one football team learned the rules of the game, learned everything, and then went on their own and never ever got any coaching, and another football team had professional coaches and then fired their professional coaches because they had enough competence in their own team to have retired members from the team coaching the team, but they kept coaching, which teams would be consistent winners out of these two? Obviously, the one constantly improving, constantly coaching, being professional. So on your farms, your ranches, we need to start being professional, winners, coaching, learning all the time. And what we're doing at SI is encouraging these hubs around the world. And I'm going to talk more and more, I hope, about you getting a hub going here, where local people, locally led, locally managed, in your own language, your own culture, whatever it is. We've got those, about 30 of those around the world now, where people are just pulling together and saying, hang on, let's just keep learning, keep advancing, keep getting better and better at managing holistically in what we're doing. And some of those started with just a couple of guys from a city, knowing nothing about agriculture, but seeing they had to get moving. So that's what we're trying to encourage with people. Right now, what that would mean, essentially, and that's the simplicity of the message of holistic management, is all of you, on your farms every day are making management actions to achieve some objective, to graze the cattle differently, to sell cattle, to do whatever it is. You cannot manage without having an objective. And so day after day you've got objectives. You have hundreds of objectives during the year on the farm or the ranch. Now, you need a context or a reason for your actions, and your common sense tells you that. So if I say to you, I've got an objective, I'm going to light fires, you don't know whether I should or not. And if I pull out my matches and start lighting the fires, anything could happen. You have to ask me, what's your reason, Alan? What's the context to what you want to light fires for? And if I say, well, it's damn cold and we've got a stove here, let's warm up, it makes sense. If we're in a wooden building and I'm just going to light fires, I'm going to burn the damn place down. It doesn't make any sense. All right, so on your farms, you're part of a Western and a ranching and an American culture. Sorry? Oh, I thought you were signaling something. You're part of that culture, all right? You've got your farms, you've got these objectives, etc., and every one of you has a reason for every action you take on the land. You do at the moment, and I can tell you what it is. You are meeting a need. I need to be more profitable. I need more production. I need to heal these gullies. I need to do this. I need to do that. Or you're meeting a desire. Okay, they'll usually fall into those categories. Whatever they are, hundreds of actions, they'll fall under you're meeting some need, some desire, or you're solving some problem. You're addressing a problem that you've got on the ranch. And when we look at policies of any organization, anything, from your home and your policies on kids and how much they watch television to government policies, the only reason you ever form a policy is to deal with a problem. There's no other reason that we ever form a policy. So it's always that. So you're taking this web of complexity of your family, the relationships, how people are in your community and everything, and the economy and the constantly changing economy and the markets, and your land, which is never the same 2 years running with the seasons and everything. You're taking that web of complexity and you're reducing it to the reason for your actions being to meet a need, a desire, or solve a problem. That is reductionist management. That is what destroyed the Roman Empire, the Hohokams, the Charcoans, and is now threatening us globally. Because agriculture is the most destructive industry ever developed by humans. More destructive than coal, oil, anything. No other industry in the world is producing 20 times as much dead, eroding soil every year as food we need per human alive today. What other industry is doing that? You guys are. Nobody else is doing it. The oil guys aren't. The coal miners aren't. Nobody is as destructive as agriculture. And America leads the way on that. All right, so you don't take that web of complexity down to need, desire, or problem. Okay, so how do you do it? It's very simple. You just get to understanding, okay, what is the whole I'm dealing with? It's my land, it's my family, it's extended family. Is there any leased land? Just put your arms around it. What is it? Who actually makes the management decisions here? At any level, these people need to be developing a context or a reason for our actions. Who's terribly important to us, but they don't actually make our management decisions? Well, it's all those people we borrow money from or market or sell to, the extension services we work to. They're terribly important to us, but they don't actually make our decisions. All right, we've boiled it down. It's all this room. Most of you are clients, suppliers, whatever, vital to us. But we've boiled it down to it's this little group here that actually make the decisions in this farm, on this family. Now, with that little group who actually make decisions, we would sit and say, how do you want your lives to be? Deep stuff. You would die rather than not live like this. Do you want to be prosperous? Do you want stable families, healthy families, well-educated kids, abundant, clean food, etc.? That's what you want? What's your religion, your spiritual values? You want to pursue your own spiritual values independently? Every member of the family can do that. You talk about this. And then you tie that to your life-supporting environment. And if the farm was gullies and erosion, everything, you ignore it. That's a symptom of your past management. So you would now describe your farm in the condition it has to be 300, 400, 500 years from now for your descendants to still live a life like that. So what will the water cycle function like, the nutrient cycle, etc.? Not species, not invasive species and all this bullshit we talk today. Get beyond species to process, healthy environment, healthy process, clean water, abundant, effective rainfall. So we describe that, all right? And then we've got another part. We decided we're going to make the decisions on this farm, but you're all vital to us. You buy our products, etc. I can't change you, but I want you to buy my products, be loyal to me, etc. How can I do that? We now describe our behavior, and we would be sitting as a family and saying, if we want the loyalty of all these people and the support and harmony in our community, how must we behave? The only person I can change is me. And now this is not marketing, it's not your brand, it's not all that shallow bullshit. This is deep stuff. End of the day, you are judged by your behavior, not your words. So how are we going to have to be? We're going to have to be honest, professional, good attitude, whatever it is. Now we've got a context. Now we have a context. And that one context now becomes the context for all your management actions. So now as you go ahead on that farm or ranch with you, as a family, you'll meet your needs, you'll meet your desires, you'll want to be more profitable, you want to deal with these problems, you'll do it, you'll use all the available science, knowledge, your advisors, your technical services, everything. And when you're close to taking the action, you'll just pass it through 7 little checks to see if it's socially, environmentally, economically sound in your own self-interest. Is it in context, holistic context? If it is, you go with it. If it's not, you say, whoops, we better rethink that one. Isn't that simple? That's all it is. But to do that and to make that change, You're going to have your own coaching, your own people, learning amongst yourselves, helping each other, collaborating, extension people, university people, government agencies, farmers, ranchers, working together. It's one team humanity, one nation. We've got to start putting agriculture right, farm by farm, ranch by ranch, community by community, and getting on with it. Thank you. That's what it's about.